The first thing I liked about the new apartment was the window. It took up almost the entire wall in the living room, a clean rectangle of glass that opened straight onto the night. No courtyard, no pretty view, just another building 5 meters away, its own matching window facing mine like a mirror. At first, it felt oddly comforting. I wasn't staring into a brick wall. There was light, movement, life. Most evenings, when I got home from work, there was someone on the other side. A woman. Not clearly, not in detail. Just a silhouette behind a thin curtain. A dark shape pacing slowly, sometimes pausing, sometimes sitting. The light in her apartment was always on, soft and yellow. I never saw her face. Never saw her open the window. Just the outline of a person moving in a box of light across the gap. It felt normal. City life. Anonymous neighbors. I told myself she was probably thinking the same about me. A week passed before I realized something was wrong. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I'd had a miserable day at work and came home with the kind of flat exhaustion where everything feels thin. I dropped my bag on the couch and walked toward the window out of habit. Across the gap, her light was on, her curtain drawn. Her silhouette was there, standing, just standing. I sank into the chair by the window and rubbed my eyes. When I glanced back up, she was still in the same position, facing me, unmoving. I watched for a moment, waiting for the usual pacing, the slow drift across the room. Nothing. On a weird impulse, I stood up. Across the gap, her silhouette stood up too. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. I took a step closer to the window. So did she. I stopped. She stopped. I lifted my right hand slightly. Her right arm rose a heartbeat later. Just a fraction of a second delay. Just enough. My rational mind scrambled for explanations. Reflection? But the angle was wrong. The glass didn't reflect that way at night. It was too dark behind me. Maybe she saw me move and mirrored me as a joke. I forced a laugh that sounded more like a cough. Okay, I muttered. Let's see. I waved. Across the gap, the woman's silhouette raised her hand and waved back. 1 second late. The delay was small but unmistakable, like my movements were being copied through a sluggish connection. My throat went dry. I edged closer to the glass until my forehead almost touched it. The curtain across from me was thin, but the light behind her was stronger than mine. All I could make out was that shape. Shoulders, head, arms. No features. Can you see me? I asked the empty room, feeling ridiculous. Her arm slid back down to her side. Mine was already down. For a few long seconds, we just stood there, two dark shapes facing each other across the narrow space. Eventually, I backed away, closed my curtains more out of unease than privacy, made dinner, put on a show, try not to think about it. Before bed, I double-checked the window. Curtains fully closed, rod tight in its brackets. No light bleeding through. I went to sleep. Somewhere deep in the night, I woke up with the heavy certainty that something was wrong. The room was dim, lit only by the sickly orange glow of the streetlight outside. My tongue felt dry. My heart was beating too fast for someone who'd just been sleeping. I turned my head toward the window. The curtains were open. I knew I had shut them. I remembered pulling the fabric closed, feeling the weight of it in my hands. Now the glass yawned bare. Slowly, I pushed myself up on one elbow. Across the gap, in the apartment opposite, the light was on. At first, I thought my sleep-fogged brain was playing tricks on me. It looked like someone had taken a copy of my own curtains and hung them in her window. Same fabric, same folds, same slight fray at the bottom corner where the seam was coming loose. I squinted. It wasn't just similar. It was identical. My curtains were open. Hers were closed, with my curtains. A shadow moved behind them. A slender, feminine shape pressed against the borrowed fabric, stretching it inwards toward the glass. The outline of a face leaned close, too close. I froze. There was no way she could have seen my curtains clearly enough to mimic them. There was no way she could have known about that tiny tear. And there was definitely no way the apartment facing mine could be lit from the inside. Because today, earlier that afternoon, I had gone there. The curiosity that had been growing all week finally pushed me out the door. In daylight, the gap between the buildings looked smaller. The other structure's facade was worn, paint peeling, balcony rails rusted. I found the entrance. The intercom was dead, its buttons faded. Door unlocked. Inside, the stairwell smelled of dust and old water. No mail in the boxes. No sounds behind the doors as I climbed. On the floor directly across from my own, I counted the doors until I reached the one that should have matched the window opposite mine. The number was crooked. The peephole was cracked. The door was slightly ajar. I nudged it open. The air inside was stale, the thick, unmoving air of a place nobody has breathed in for a long time. Dust lay in soft drifts on the floor. There was no furniture, no light fixtures, just bare walls and a sagging ceiling. The windows, the ones that should have faced mine, were covered, not with curtains, with boards, rough planks nailed across the frames from the inside, leaving only thin slits of gray daylight in between. No hinges, no rods, certainly no soft fabric moving in a midnight breeze. I stepped closer, touching the wood. Splinters flaked under my fingers. From my side, I had never seen the boards, only glass and light. Now, there was nothing but barriers. A chill settled between my shoulder blades. By the time I got back home, I had convinced myself I'd gotten the wrong apartment, the wrong window, the wrong floor, some error in my internal map. But lying there in bed, staring across at the glowing rectangle, the one that should have been dark and boarded, I knew I hadn't been wrong. Something was lighting that room. Something was behind my curtains, wearing them like a costume. As I watched, the shadows shifted. The borrowed curtains parted from the inside. The silhouette of the woman stood framed in the window. She was closer than she'd ever been. Before, it had always been a vague outline behind fabric. Now there was nothing between her and the glass. But still, maddeningly, I couldn't see her face. The light behind her was too bright, flattening her into a single black shape. I could see the outline of her hair, hanging straight. Her shoulders, her arms. She raised one arm, slowly. I didn't move. Her hand pressed flat against the glass. 5 long fingers splayed wide. From where I sat, it looked like she was pressing her palm against my window. My own hand twitched in my lap. I clenched it into a fist. For a long, breathless moment, we stayed like that. Her hand lifted. Mine stayed down. No mirroring. No copying. Then she began to move that hand. Her finger traced across the inside of the glass, leaving a faint trail. Some kind of condensation must have been there, fogged by her breath or the difference in temperature. She was writing. Letters formed one by one. From my side, they were backwards, but legible. NAKONECLTOTYP or ISHEL. It took my brain a second to reorganize them. Finally, you came. My mouth went dry. My heart hammered so loud I could barely hear anything else. She kept writing. Another word. TEPER. Then, IMOGUVYITI. Now I can come out. My skin crawled. I scrambled up from the bed, flicked on the ceiling light with hands that didn't feel like mine. The sudden brightness hurt my eyes. The familiar clutter of my new apartment snapped into harsh focus. I looked back out the window. Across the gap, the light snapped off. The window went black. The words vanished. For a moment, I saw only my own reflection. Wide eyes, mouth slightly open, skin pale from the overhead bulb. Then, behind my reflection, in the dark glass opposite, something moved. Not her. Not exactly. My reflection flinched. The thing behind it didn't. It was a shape, tall and faint, standing just inside that boarded, empty apartment. Standing where no floor lamp glowed. Where no curtain should have rustled. It stepped closer to the glass. I took an involuntary step back. My reflection obeyed. The thing behind it didn't. It leaned in, bending in a way no spine should bend, as if the upper half of its body was sliding down the inside of the glass toward me. The room felt suddenly colder. My curtains, still open, stirred even though the window was shut. The air brushed the back of my neck. I spun around. No one was there. When I turned back, the opposite window was dark again. No light, no silhouette, just an empty square reflecting the glow of my room. The night outside swallowed everything else. I forced myself to close my curtains. This time, I pulled them tight, knotting the fabric at the bottom so they couldn't slip open on their own. I did not sleep. Every creak of the building, every passing car outside, every faint sigh of the pipes sounded wrong. At some point, my exhaustion won. I must have drifted. When I woke, the room was gray with early light. My curtains were open. My heart dropped into my stomach so fast it hurt. I hadn't opened them. I knew I hadn't. Across the gap, the other window was dark. No light, no movement, no trace of my curtains, my twin. But on the inside of my glass, at eye level, something was faintly visible. Letters, written in the thin film of condensation my breath had left in the night. Backwards, from inside my own apartment. I could still read them. Thank you. The second line. Now I can leave. A slow, unfamiliar smile stretched across my face. Too wide. My eyes, reflected in the glass, looked bigger than they should. Brighter. Hungrier. Across from me, in the dead, boarded-up apartment, something watched from behind the dark. And for the first time since I moved in, I had the disturbing feeling that from its perspective, I was the one on the wrong side of the glass.